the war in Ukraine came, and how do you see this impacting the food service industry?
Well, there are two elements in the food industry. One is what's going on with the consumer, which is what I was referring to right now.
Mm-hmm.
And the other, of course, is what is happening at corporate level and what is happening with the cost lines. So if we focus on the consumer, and of course in Belgium you are better off as far as you have a salary that is indexed and you are not a freelancer or something like that. But in the rest of Europe, salaries are not per se indexed. And what we have seen is that the entry-level salaries and the minimum wages have increased a lot, but the average wages are lagging behind inflation. So in other words, in real terms, the consumer is poorer than what it was back in 2019.
And
so
is it
they have to make choices.
Yes, that was what I was going to ask. So they need to make choices.
Absolutely.
So is it clear that they cut back on, let's say, restaurant visits or things like that, like maybe luxury in a little bit?
Well, the funny thing is that the consumer, when we started to see inflation kicking on, the first thing we did as analysts is just dig in our databases and dig in history and say, okay, what happened last time that the consumer was poorer? And the most obvious period is, let's say, 2009, 2014, roughly speaking, in Europe. So the financial crisis, the euro crisis.
Absolutely, yes.
And at the time, the consumer did certain things. For example, they went out to the restaurant much less often. And they traded down. So they went from going to a high price to a mid price, or from a mid price to a low price restaurant. And in the retail, they were going from buying branded products to buying private label, and from buying more expensive options to buying cheaper options. Let's say, not a steak, but let's buy eggs. So, okay, that's what we saw. And of course, they eliminated anything that was discretionary spending and superfluous. What we are seeing now is strangely different. Because what we are noticing is that, there is some of that trading down and some of going out less often to the restaurants, but it's questionable how much is just because of the economy or how much is that we didn't really get a full recovery of 2019 pace because some people have got new habits. But it is indeed a little bit happening. Sales at supermarkets are remarkably hit compared to what we would expect when we look at restaurants, in the sense that people are adjusting a lot what they buy. And they are buying more private label, they are buying less expensive things, they are adjusting their shopping basket. And what they are not adjusting, but the opposite, is their budgets for going out on holidays. If you follow the news, you will see that bookings are doing extremely well, transportation is doing extremely well. So the consumer is making different choices.